Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the AM Report, perhaps news, the network of now. I'm Alex Mahajer. It is Friday, February 12th, and this morning I'll be joined by Rance Collins, editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat. We're going to discuss Donald Trump's impeachment trial. We're going to day 4 today. Today, the defense portion of the hearing will begin. We're going to recap the first 2 days of presentations by the House Democratic impeachment managers, and we're going to cover what may be going on inside the heads of Donald Trump's attorneys as they have to rebut what was a very damning and thorough presentation over the last couple of days. We're going to talk about the likelihood that Republicans will acquit and cover some of today's top headlines. All of this and more this morning on the AM Report. All right, I don't know what's up with our little intro video, but we're having some sound delays. But I'd like to welcome you to the program. I'm Alex Mahajer. Thank you for joining the AM Report this morning on HAPS News, Network of Now. If you're watching on the HAPS app, website, or platform, click the award button. Let us know you're enjoying it. Or if you're watching on Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, leave a comment. I can read them live on air. Let's bat around with each other. Chime in. Let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing you guys chime in from around the country, around the world. It's good to see you all this morning. So let me know. What are you thinking as we go into today's hearings? What do you anticipate Trump's attorneys are going to say? How do you feel like Republicans have any shame at all if they don't convict? Let us know. I'd like to welcome you all to the program. Mark says I mustache you a question right off the bat. So funny, Mark. Thanks for that. And thanks for the high award, Renee. Good to see you every morning. I'd like to welcome to the program Rance Collins, editor-in-chief, 800 Democrat. Good morning, Rance. You muted, Rance?
Good morning, Alex.
Good morning.
I was like, why can't you hear me?
How you doing?
I'm good. What a couple days we've had. Am I right?
What a couple days. And for everyone who's watching, Rance Collins has just been named one of the most eligible bachelors in Los Angeles, according to the Los Angeles Blade. So if anyone wants to check that out at the LA Blade, you should, because there's some good quotes in there. Particularly my favorite, and not to derail this too much, this isn't a lifestyle and culture show, but your quote about what kind of gentleman you are interested in dating. And your answer was, and I'm going to read it, for dating purposes, I can handle anything between Kristen Sinema and AOC. I'd consider Joe Manchin, but we'd have to settle a lot of disagreements through budget reconciliation. Any farther right than that, well, it just ain't going to work out. So that's who I'm dealing with, everybody. Rance Collins.
It's true, though. I mean, like, we'd get into a lot of problems if I was going to have to deal with anybody that's going to vote against impeachment. So,
well, and let's get right into that, Rance. The Democrats yesterday closed their first day of hearing. They closed their opening arguments, which took 2 days. So House impeachment managers delivered 2 days of basically unrelenting evidence. And after 2 days of thorough, methodical, documentary, and video evidence demonstrating that Donald Trump incited violence at the Capitol on January 6th, House impeachment managers yesterday closed their case in chief. And GOP senators across the board praised the performance in interview after interview. We heard GOP senators saying this was a great performance, but we don't think that we're going to convict. What are your thoughts on the Democratic House impeachment managers' presentation over the last 2 days on the whole, Rance?
Well, the presentation was absolutely fantastic, and if we were in front of an impartial jury of 12 of Donald Trump's peers, then he would be convicted and sent to jail. But unfortunately, we're in front of maybe 55 impartial jurors and 45 who are complicit, and in some cases accomplices. And it's kind of difficult to convict a person who has co-conspirators on the jury.
Absolutely. And so I've got some quotes from some of the Republican senators. Senator Marco Rubio, I think they did a good job. I don't believe the facts are largely in dispute about what happened that day or the nature of what happened. The fundamental question for me, and I don't know about everybody else, is whether an impeachment trial is appropriate for someone who is no longer in office. I don't believe that it is. I believe it sets a very dangerous precedent. Senator Ron Johnson says the impeachment trial is unconstitutional, but thought the House managers put forward a good case. Obviously, it was their side, their perspective, he said. And then Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota said he thought one line in particular by Congressman Ted Lieu about Trump winning, it was not about Trump running again, but about Trump running again and losing, was that very powerful. But also punted to constitutionality. I do actually have a clip of that moment by Congressman Ted Lieu. I'd like to play for you now and then get your reaction, Rance.
President Trump's lack of remorse shows that he will undoubtedly cause future harm if allowed, because he still refuses to account for his previous high grave crime against our government. You know, I'm not afraid of Donald Trump running again in 4 years. I'm afraid he's going to run again and lose, because he can do this again.
Alex, are you talking? Because I can't hear you.
Yes, I am talking. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
All right. Well, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with the sound today. But Rance, what did you think of Ted Lieu's not being afraid that Trump will run again? It's about being afraid that Trump will run again and lose. This is what's apparently really snapped a lot of Republican senators to attention on this issue. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I don't know how much it actually, they're qualifying everything they say, so I don't know how much it actually snapped them to attention. You know, they're worrying about dangerous precedents, apparently. Weren't so concerned about dangerous precedents when, I don't know, we were, you know, trying to get information on a political opponent from the Ukraine, but apparently dangerous precedents are now a thing. I think that I mean, like, everything they presented, including his last statement, were very much the reasons why this should be addressed. We can't allow this type of behavior to become acceptable. There has to be accountability for this type of behavior. And so we can't have a person, president or otherwise, get away with inciting a mob to go storm the Capitol. I mean, I don't know. And then beyond that, we can't make it okay for there to be this 11th hour January grace period where suddenly a president can just totally abandon his duties and not send in the National Guard and not make a statement that could end the violence. Because ultimately, beyond inciting the mob, the thing that I think is irrefutable is that he sat on his laurels and did absolutely nothing for hours. And then when he did something, he didn't denounce what was happening. And he didn't send in the National Guard until it was way past the time they should have been there. I mean, I don't understand why. I don't understand why that alone isn't impeachable. And if Marco Rubio is going to sit there and say that the only reasons we can't address this is because it would set a dangerous precedent for impeaching people and convicting people while they're not in office. Well, first of all, he was impeached while he was in office, and second of all, this is constitutional. We've already established that it is constitutional to convict a former president. We voted on that. The Senate decided on that. Yes, you voted the opposite direction, but once that decision has been decided, that means you can no longer use that as an excuse.
Yeah, and Rance, to your point, a comment from a commenter, Mark B9T. Trump is already gone, he says. Can't we just leave well enough alone? Which is really the Republican sentiment of this isn't constitutional because Trump's out of office. So what's the point? And I think the really important point to note that the conviction, the impeachment powers vested in Congress also include with them the power to preclude anyone who is impeached from holding federal office again in the future, which is still one of their vested powers. So it is an innately circular argument to say, a flawed argument to say that he's out of office now because he can still run for office. And because of their constitutional powers to prevent him from running from office, and because he was impeached while he was still president, this conviction trial is very much so constitutional. And the other thing important to note is on the very first day of this hearing I believe it's Tuesday now. Tuesday. It was Tuesday. You know, they voted. The entire Senate voted on whether or not this hearing was constitutional, and a majority of senators voted to suggest that it is. So the issue of whether it's constitutional has already been voted on, and now senators are being asked to judge the case on the merits. So that they're still punting to constitutionality is really a slimy circumvention of their duties, and they're going to do anything to punt on this because they don't want to piss off Trump's base. What do you think if you're watching this at home? If you're watching, let me know how you're feeling. And right, if this is a legitimate impeachment trial, why isn't Justice Roberts presiding as required by the Constitution? Because the president who's impeached is no longer a sitting president, but he was president when the conduct occurred, and he was president when he was impeached by the House. And that's why Justice Roberts need not be there. This is a flawed and phony argument presented by Trump's supporters, basically, to try to find ways to avoid looking at the merits, to avoid looking at the facts of the case. Very, very unfortunate to live in a country where we don't want to hold people accountable. Very frustrating. Mm-hmm. And to that point, Rance, 15 GOP senators weren't even in their seats yesterday during the hearing. So what we're learning is that the supposed jurors of the impeachment trial, 15 Republicans not seen in their seats as House impeachment managers made their second day of arguments yesterday in the Senate. Senators Mike Lee, Lindsey Graham, and Ted Cruz were also meeting with the defense attorneys and Trump's team to feed them defense points. The jurors are meeting with the defense attorneys to feed them their arguments. Rance. And we know this because Jason Miller, who's on Trump's Trump's inner circle, appeared on Newsmax, which is not a news organization. It's a propaganda. It's a propaganda rag, basically. It's a pro-Trump propaganda rag. Here's Jason Miller talking about how these senators were meeting with the defense attorneys in advance of today's hearing. Let's listen to that.
But I'll tell you, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Mike Lee, these are some smart guys with some very good ideas. And I think President Trump is going to get the absolute best defense today. And it was a real honor to have those senators come in and give us some additional ideas. So we're appreciative for that.
Yeah.
Rants, thoughts?
I mean, I realize that the jurors in this case are not necessarily bound by the same rules that a jury would be in a criminal trial, but I don't see how anyone can just be okay with the fact that three of the people who are supposed to be voting on this issue impartially just met with the defense attorneys and provided them talking points, provided them ways to go about their business, as if that's going to even give the appearance of impartiality. I mean, like, we all knew they weren't impartial. We all knew that they weren't paying attention in the chamber and that sometimes they weren't even there. But I mean, like, at the very least, I gotta believe that Mitch McConnell wouldn't be stupid enough to go meet with those senators behind closed doors and make it look as partisan as it is. Like, these are such amateurs that are so brazenly what's the word I'm looking for? So brazenly corrupt, so brazenly unethical. I mean, it's absolutely astounds me. And let's not forget here that Lindsey Graham has been in communication with Trump. He's been talking to him and bragging about the fact that he's talking to him on the phone on Fox News. He was on Sean Hannity the other night, talking about how he's talking to Trump. So I mean, these are not impartial jurors. This is why why any Republican that the Democrats managed to get a vote from, which I think will probably be a minimum of 3, and as much as 5 or 6, maybe 7. Any votes we get, in my opinion, is a de facto in conviction, because getting that from this complicit party is a miracle.
And it would be, if even one Republican crosses over, then you've got a majority. While it's not the 67 votes needed, it would be a majority of senators.
We'll get at least one. I mean, like,
we'll get Romney.
I don't want to be overconfident, but I feel Romney and Murkowski I feel like they're pretty much locks. I think, I would like to say Susan Collins is a lock, but for whatever reason, you can just never predict her from day to day. She has been consistently voting in what seems like that direction. Pat Toomey doesn't seem to have anything to lose, so I wouldn't be surprised if he voted for conviction. And then we have Cassidy over in Louisiana, who's sounding like he might be considering it from the interviews he's been giving.
He also voted against his party to say earlier this week that the hearing is constitutional.
Yeah.
And in interviews, you're right.
Surprise.
He's been more or less moved by the presentation of the Democratic House impeachment managers.
And then the guy from South Dakota sounded a little bit like he was on the fence.
Yeah, but South Dakota Browns, he was moved by Ted Lieu's performance, but he also said the issue for most of us is, and this is Senator Mike Brown's, Republican, South Dakota, quote, the issue for most of us is, are you asking us to do something that we simply don't have the capability of doing because the Constitution does not give us that tool with regards to a private citizen?
Such a cop-out. Such a cop-out.
It's such a cop-out.
That's already been decided. You can't use that argument anymore. You're just trying to cover your own ass.
Yep. And Joyce Alderwood presented this comment. Those 15 senators, she says, who couldn't bother to be present, and the quote jurors meeting with the defense team should all be barred from voting. What kind of jury is this that colludes with the defense? Yeah, and a lot of people have been saying, had Mitch McConnell been running this show, that he would have barred those senators from voting because they weren't even there to hear the arguments, and that would take the 2/3 threshold down quite a bit, and only require 56 senators to convict. And
the issue is, if they were in the cloakroom where there's a closed circuit television, because of COVID, they are allowed to go into these other rooms that have closed circuit televisions during the arguments. That is a COVID related thing with the Senate. So they might be covered whether or not they were actually paying attention if they were in a room that had a closed circuit TV of the floor. So that's the technicality. If they were somewhere other than a room that had a closed circuit TV, then they would be. But I think a Democrat should bring up on the floor I want to see someone bring up the fact that they were talking to the defense yesterday.
Yeah, and
That's what I want to see.
Juliet says it's absolutely shameful, and her comment is blocking her faces. But Juliet, I want to give you this screen time, so I hope you're pleased. Absolutely shameful that instead of listening to the arguments, the jurors were sitting with the defense attorneys to prepare them for their day in court. The height of corruption. They obviously have already decided that all these factual presentations are useless. While the world is watching and the world knows what the verdict should be. And I think that's the sentiment of Democrats who understand that they're probably not going to get a conviction here, but are doing this for the historical record because their presentation is so thorough and damning and irrefutable and backed by video graphic evidence as clear as a James Cameron movie, my friend Devin likes to say, and 3D models demonstrating where the mob was in relation to the Senate, and timelines that are meticulously and methodically disciplined and spelled out for us. At this time, this tweet was made. At this time, this action was taken. At this time, this Mike Pence is being vacated from the Senate chamber floors and is in danger. And after that, President Trump is still tweeting out attacks on him on Twitter, even though he knows that he had a phone call at this time. So he knows that Pence is in danger. All of this was very well done. So Democrats know that they're probably not going to get a conviction here, but that they are making a damning and irrefutable case for the public record, and that it will now fall on Republicans to make their shameless corruption lay it bare for the world to see, Rance.
Well, 56% before the most recent poll, which would not have been conducted before this trial began, said that 56% of Americans believe that he should be convicted. That's the majority opinion of our public, and they're working against the majority opinion because of their fear of Donald Trump. I mean, it's just that simple. They're working against the majority opinion because they fear getting a Donald Trump approved candidate in a primary, or Donald Trump maybe has something on Lindsey Graham. Who knows?
Lindsey Graham is bought and paid. There's nothing that can explain the 180 turn by this guy. Senator Lindsey Graham was calling Donald Trump a kook and a bigot and a xenophobic psychopath and all this stuff during the 2016 campaign, and now he is Trump's bootlicker, and it makes no sense. Lindsey Graham is bought and paid for. So Trump.
Also, you can go find the video of Lindsey Graham talking about how lying about a blowjob was impeachable.
Right, and
it's on the videos out there, and it looks just as hypocritical as it sounds.
Well, and so Lindsey Graham, the height of hypocrisy. And what does this guy have on you, Lindsey? When did you sell your soul, and to whom? This is also a guy who, by the way, in 2016 was crying on video interviews, crying tears of love and friendship for Joe Biden, and saying that he doesn't know a better person in politics. He doesn't know a nicer, kinder person. So I don't know who just sell your soul to, Lindsey, but it's absurd. But all we do know is that today, Rance, Donald Trump's defense attorneys are up to bat. We're going to day 4, and the Democrats, the prosecution has rested its case, and now the defense is up. Former President Trump's defense team will begin a full day of arguments today. Not expected to use the full 2 days that they are allotted. We anticipate they may not even use the full day today because they've got so little in terms of a response, but we can anticipate that their argument is going to be about Trump's free speech, to say that this speech is constitutionally protected by the First Amendment, and that he was just exercising his First Amendment rights, that he wasn't being literal, and that the trial is unconstitutional because he's no longer in office. A point that on all fronts, all of these arguments have been disputed and shot down by legal experts. And as a person, I have a law degree. I'm not claiming to be the next coming of the legal world, okay? But I do know very basically, first-year law school about First Amendment protections. They don't protect incitement to violence. They don't. So it just doesn't apply here. This isn't a violation of his First Amendment to say you can't make speech that incites violence. It's just not protected speech. It's
He's
basic,
the president
basic.
of the United. Let's keep in mind here. He was the president of the United States at the time. At that point, you have a command that can incite a mob, but just by telling a group of people, I mean, like you could actually go take your gun, hand it to somebody on Fifth Avenue, and tell them to shoot somebody. And because you're the president, they would probably shoot that person. I mean, not everyone would, but some people would. That's what you have to understand. Like he doesn't get to act like he's Joe Schmo from West Virginia.
Yeah, but the constitutionality of his speech is not in question, and the constitutionality of this hearing are not in question. But his sort of clown show defense team is going to make that argument today, regardless. And if you don't remember, here's his defense attorney, Bruce Castor, from a few days ago on day one, where they made kind of opening statements. Bruce Castor's kind of belligerent, embarrassing performance, which apparently pissed off even the president. Here's a best of Bruce Castor making no sense earlier this week.
I'll be quite frank with you. We changed what we were going to do on account that we thought that the House manager's presentation was well done. We are generally a social people. We enjoy being around one another. Senators of the United States, they're not ordinary people. And boy, this is a diverse group. We still know what records are, right? On the thing you put the needle down on and you play it. I worked in this building 40 years ago. I got lost then, and I still do. I represent the great state of fill in the blank. I saw a headline, Representative so-and-so seeks to walk back comments about, I forget what it was, something that bothered her. I don't want to steal the thunder from the other lawyers, but Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. If the individual state legislatures didn't adopt the Constitution, we would not have it. The floodgates will open.
Rance, one of my favorite tweets that you tweeted that day was in response to Bruce Castor's comment that I don't want to steal the thunder from the other attorneys here, and you just tweeted, "You're not." It was just hilarious. So
don't worry about that.
That's kind of what we had. Michelle says we had a good laugh about this. It was so incoherent about Bruce Castor's performance. So today I'm going to be watching Rance, not so much for the coherent legal strategy, but to see Bruce Castor embarrass himself, and I hope he does, because it'll just be so entertaining.
I don't think that anyone's told him that he can't get the charges knocked down to manslaughter. I don't think he realizes he's not in a regular. It's like that's what I was thinking while he was defending him. It sounded like he was defending a murder victim. A murderer who had been charged with first degree, and he was trying to get the sentence knocked down.
Well, either way, Rance, you and I will both be watching today and commenting and tweeting. So let people know, where can people find you at 800 Democrat and support what you're doing today?
The number 800 and Democrat, 800 Democrat. Just search for us on either Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, and you can follow us. And I'm sure I'll be commenting and throughout the day, and particularly on our Facebook page, we'll be offering updates for those of you who are not able to watch it live.
Cam33 says liberalism is a mental disorder. Someone call my
homosexuality apparently, and
well, someone get me a straitjacket, because apparently I've got a mental disorder.
And I don't think you could stay in a straitjacket if you tried. I'm too
batshit crazy, Rance. I'm too batshit crazy. Although this mustache is a prison unto itself. Thank you so much, Rance Collins, for joining the AM Report this morning for Haps News. Rance, appreciate seeing you, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you soon.
This has been the AM Report for Haps News Network of Now. I'm Alex Mahajer. We are live every weekday morning with all of your quick political news and headlines to get your day started right. If you like this journalism, if you like this content, if you don't think liberalism is a mental disorder, or at least you just wish to debate people who have a differing viewpoint than you, because welcome to America, then please consider sponsoring this program or subscribing to it. You can visit me at haps.tv/@Alex and become a recurring monthly sponsor. Just $5 a month or $2 a month, whatever you want. Help buy me a cup of coffee and support independent journalism. Or click subscribe and get a notification every morning to find out when we go live. We'll be back on Monday with Miranda Yaver, political scientist, postdoctoral scholar, and constitutional law expert to discuss the conclusion of the impeachment trial. And we may even have a vote on Monday. So stay tuned, everybody, and we hope you have a fantastic weekend. Bye-bye.